Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Silver is getting its ass kicked in the overnight session. So it took MC, good morning. It took a little bit of wrestling to get in, but it finally worked nicely. Guys, as I posted before on gold, these things don't just go vertical. It's a stair step, right? You go up, you go sideways, 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 you go up. Where's the sideways? I know nobody wants to believe that things go sideways, but things do indeed go sideways. That is just part of nature. Yeah, I'm traveling. My flight's not till noon, so I at least got a chance for pre-market prep and good 30 minutes of market open in Discord. Yeah, I've had silver trade open now for
Boston says inflation is too high and needs to come down. Remember, Fred Bostic is currently speaking on CNBC.
let's see. I've had silver trade open now for seems like for forever. I've been in it for like in and out for the last couple of weeks. You got chopped up trying to short silver and covered a small cut at the close yesterday. Yeah, I mean, they haven't made it. They didn't make it easy, and even with the close yesterday, like I had to put a half a hedge back on the futures market, and then as soon as I saw that we were rolling over, I got out of that, and that actually is what kept me safe the night before. And coincidentally, I made some money on that trade. So yeah, they didn't make it easy, and I kind of had the feeling, and I talked about this quite a bit during live stream, where I said, this trade they're probably going to gap it down so that not many people will feel comfortable participating after the fact, and that's just fairly normal on a trade like this. They just run it up, and then you kind of got to be in it before that overnight gap down, because that is in some instances how they've been doing these. Not every time, but that is kind of how they've been doing some of it. My thoughts after yesterday's action was way too fucking choppy, to put it plainly. Very, very choppy environment. Dude, I tried a half position in I tried a 3% position in Rocket Lab. I tried a 5% position in VLO. I've tried a 2% position in KTOS the other day. I think I tried a 2% position in EOSE. Dude, I'm just shrinking my size. Am I green overall? I was down about 250K on my silver trade overall. But because of my NEM trade, I was really more down, like, I want to say like maybe 50K, a little bit less. And then even with my futures hedge, which ended up being a win, I was effectively flat on all of my tries on silver and gold, technically. And now we're up, almost $2 million. It'll look like by the time this trade is done. So yeah, I'll be super bright green. And this is kind of what I was thinking silver can turn into. I thought it could make, a good chunk of the year on just one opportunity. So, you kind of had to swing for the fences. And that's what I did. And I just kept adding once I was in. And yeah, being a little bit stubborn sometimes pays. It doesn't pay all the time. It caused me a little headache 2 weeks ago. But it's just part of trading sometimes. You got to show up, you got to take your trades, and you got to trust what you've seen, right? And as I talked about gold before, as I tweeted, this is what stocks do. They just don't go vertical for forever. Now, I know it can feel a little bit painful when you just see something going up, but you don't get FOMO into that. You you got to learn to operate, without FOMO. And there is no FOMO. I was long NEM, right? I mean, I was literally long this thing. And by the way, my best trims are $134. 134 in here. How about that? 134.
On VC Verizon.
Thought about selling your ALB trade yesterday, but decided to stick to your rule. Yeah, I mean, look, you got to follow your rules despite the super shitty gap down, right? Otherwise, like when you're in something great, like of course I was thinking, getting rid of my NEM, but what do I do in this? I just every single day I'm peeling 10% of what I have left. So my trims are getting smaller and smaller and smaller on the way up. I had 200 share trim at 134. So, it's like ideally you sell the last 2,000 of your shares, but that's not the game plan, right? The game plan is to stick to the game plan and follow your rules that you've already have set forth in your own trading that, you've just done over and over and over and over and over. What percent of a drawdown was I in? At one point I was down about 2% on the portfolio on the year, about 2%. But this will have me a whole lot better. Bright green on the month. Do I foresee a bounce for silver in the near future? I mean, yeah, maybe. But I do think that silver, at least for now, has hit its peak. I mean, down to the 20-day, and that's probably where I take some off. I'd be shooting for the 50-day. Hopefully, this will keep going up. So maybe to $80 on SLV or silver futures. And then ultimately, in my opinion, we could easily, not easily, but I think it's totally possible we go back down to these October highs. This whole parabolic move will be negated. And then eventually we'll find a new base. And it'll be a long time before it ever goes to see brand new highs. So, I know nobody wants to hear that, but it just is what it is. Meta HVC. I would probably leave that alone right now in this environment. Would I close my short position in the open? No. I've kind of been like working through those entry tactics in my brain. Like, how do I just buy it off of the touch of the key moving average versus waiting for that 620 setup? I've kind of thought to myself, maybe I like put it on a really small piece, like 2% on that touch, add 2% or 3% or 4% on the 620 setup. And that's kind of been my thinking. But I need to work through that a little bit more because it just doesn't make me as comfortable to do. The annoying one a little bit is I had a huge position in SILJ, which I got stopped out of. I was up like 400K on that thing, and then I had to stop out of it for still a pretty nice win. But like that's what I was up at the lows on Tuesday, I want to say, and now we're at like $33. So it's like we're another like $3.50 lower from there. Like super, super frustrating. Like that was another potential 7-figure winner, which kind of sucks. I'm watching SNDK. I'm kind of thinking like everybody is wowed by these earnings, myself included, but we've made such a vertical move on SNDK that I think these earnings probably shock people where I don't know that we can continue too much higher from here. I think what ends up happening is we end up just consolidating and we end up just basing for a pretty long time, unfortunately. I know nobody really wants to hear that, but that's just kind of my thinking. Everybody just thinks these things are going to go up in perpetuity, and they don't. I had between SILJ and SLV, I had a 30% position. And I had just been adding and adding and adding to my position, and SLV is 30% size. So trust me, you end up in a massive overnight gap down like this, and you sometimes wish you just had 100% size, but that's totally irresponsible. And again, I haven't really been able to gain traction on 5% positions, but there's just times where like um, you've got this big opportunity set in front of you, and like the only real way to capture it, the thing that you've seen a million times, is with size. And it's also the thing that rights a lot of your small wrongs, right? All those little 5% and 3% and 2% and 1%, and like all these little paper cuts that you're taking just trying to get positioned into shit. um it's like you've studied these parabolics before, you've seen it before. So it's just a matter of how do you get size on. And trust me, like the other day, I was very uncomfortable in this silver short. I had a short on in here. Let me go back to it. So I had a short on in here. Was it the day before? Yeah, I had a short on from in here, literally right in here. I saw this massive volume candlestick come in on silver futures, and I'm literally trading this thing, and I have my position on, and at this point, I am hedged in the overnight session. I'm hedged in the overnight session on. Let me make sure I got this right for you guys. Let me zoom out on this thing just a little bit, dude. 1 minute chart sucks. Okay, so I've got a fat short on right in here. As this thing's just grinding higher, and then I see this massive volume bar come in. I start shorting all in here, right? I'm shorting all of this. I'm shorting all of this. And then it was in here that I have an overnight hedge on in the silver futures market. No, it was in here that I have a hedge on in the silver futures market. And then I ended up making money on that silver futures trade, which was nice. And then I ended up adding a piece to my position 109s. And that's why I have a 107 and a half. And, but it's been, dude, this has been a total nightmare to see an unwind like this. And I was up a small fortune in SILJ and SLV. Between the two on this first day dump, it was about 700K. So 600K. So to give every single cent back minus 150 grand, it sucks. Like you got to be able to kind of take that emotionally. And then, yeah, I mean, yesterday was pretty good. The bounce back obviously sucked. I had a really small position on, again, on silver futures. But then as soon as I noticed this on silver futures is when I got out of that half size hedge. So as soon as this happened, that's when I got out. So fortunately, we started to roll over last night. But any shorts on my watch list? Stocks that are bumping into their declining 50 simple moving average. Guys, I've got a million examples for you. Pay attention. All right, Spotify runs up against the declining 50-day. What happens? Rolls over, goes lower. Okay. Coinbase, what's it do? Runs up against the declining 50-day, rejects, goes lower. All right. MSTR, what's it do? Runs up against the declining 50-day, rolls over. All right. How about Uber? Runs against the declining 50-day, rolls over. Runs against the declining 50-day, rolls over. All right. How about the quantums, Ariel? How about hits the declining 50-day, goes nowhere, gets stuffed? Okay. How about CrowdStrike? The declining 50-day, gaps down the very next day. If there are shorts that you want to take, these are your layups, right? Shorts against declining 50 days. We've seen it now a gazillion times. You have to know that that is a spot, a low risk spot. Then the question becomes, how do you get involved? Okay, well, if you're familiar with a 620 setup, this one be a little too steep. I personally like putting some on into the strength, using that left side peak, using that 50-day as your guide. But this is a perfect spot. You break down, you recheck VWAP, right? And then you fail. And if you short this right here, if you're shorting this right here, okay, and you're in at 480 and your stop is highs, you're risking 1.27%, 1.3%. 10% of your portfolio, about 0.15% of your portfolio. Not 1%, a tenth of 1%, 2/10 of 1%. What do you get in exchange? Well, there you go. An 8% move, 5-1 on your money. Do you realize why I don't have to be right often in trading to make a ton of money? It's because my entries are normally very tight and my patience is really good. That's the difference. That's a huge difference. So shorts on my watch list, stocks that are bumping up to their declining moving averages, the 200-day, the 50-day, or if you're comfortable with it, going a little vertical, right? Going a little bit vertical. But yeah, just something to think about. Tesla thoughts, it looks like shit. Simple. CIEN. I would be careful with how many longs. This is kind of what I was hoping for CIEN. I see that it's gapping up, but I don't really feel comfortable buying out of this loose base, right? This is loose. Fucking loose. I understand the tight day yesterday. I understand it's trying to gap up today, but this is kind of my hope. A little bit more sideways before ultimately going. Is it too late to short HYMC? Yeah. How much was going to be my max risk on silver? Technically, when I had a silver hedge open on my position using futures market, my risk was actually zero. Right? I actually made money on my silver hedge and then have made money on my silver short. So my risk was effectively nothing because of my hedge. But I mean, I was comfortable risking, about 100 grand, a little bit more. And then once I was kind of in the driver's seat and positioned with my position, I was just sitting there, right? I was just sitting and letting it work. Do I think the silver short's a bit? Nah. I mean, look, if you had really good timing, then no. Right? I mean, I tweeted it the other day. I thought gold was offering a really nice short here. I tweeted about it literally as this was happening. I said, I think silver or gold and silver are a good short here, contrary to popular belief. And then, of course, I got pushback that, everybody keeps wanting to short it, and maybe this isn't a good short, which I get. But it depends. My timing on some of this stuff, in particular silver, I haven't shorted gold. My timing sucked, right? So that's a problem. If your timing sucks, then of course it's going to be difficult, and my timing sucked. The thing that I did well while my timing was shitty was I wasn't ever really getting too aggressive all at once, right? And then just like adding to my loser. One of the things that I do well is I cut my losers small and I just look to re-engage with the position, with a fresh perspective instead of like being wrong and then just adding to it as I'm wrong on the way up, which just ultimately ends up killing you. DFTX. Therapeutics. This looks a little extended to me from the 50. Yeah, about 5 times its ATR from the 50. This also looks super thin, just judging its price action. Yeah, way too thin. I wouldn't trade that. SKYT. Still too extended from the 50. Nice looking chart, but you don't want to be trading stocks this extended from the 50. If you see 3 trades hitting your entry tactic at the same time, should you enter all of them? Maybe not. And I would tell you, well, you can, but if you take them all with a little bit smaller size, just to never take too much exposure at once. And then the other thing I would tell you is, I wouldn't take them all at once. And then if they're all in different themes, which theme is the strongest amongst them? That's kind of how I would do it. Yeah, coin did the same exact thing too, right? It's just the decline, the rejection of the declining 50 simple moving average. PL, hopefully more sideways for this one. Looks good. How do I hedge against my short position? You go long in the futures market. So for every dollar SL or SIL or SI is going up, you know that your SLV is going to gap up. So I was going to be down some money in SLV, but then up some money in the silver futures market. So tightness in terms of open to closing range, Ivan. Great question. Thanks, Scotland. It did not come without its headaches, dude. It did not come without some headaches. So if I were in SanDisk, it depends where I bought it from. But if I ever bought this 247 breakout, by the time we got here to 500, I would be down to probably a third of my position, and I would have just let the rest work into earnings. And today on earnings, realistically, I would probably be down to like a quarter of my original position, and then I would just be holding on to the rest. I mean, probably for forever until you close below like the 50-day. And at the same time, if you feel like you're going to get too extended, and there's been a parabolic blow off move, and MU and STX and WDC are all coming down, I would probably run a short and then just keep SNDK long, so you can probably hold this thing for a year. Who knows? I'm not entirely sure. All I know is that I wouldn't have. There's no chance I'd have half my position if I caught a move vertical just like this for 100% gain in 2.5 weeks. I would be out a good chunk of my position, right? At the very minimum, half. Warby Parker, I really love the news that they're building. I want to say Google Glasses. That's awesome. SKYT was bought by Iron. Oh, that's interesting. Wait a second. Oh, this hasn't even traded for 4 days. I was like, I looked at this one a few days ago, Scotland. I was like, this looks fucking the same. I was like, why does this damn thing look the same? Bought by IONQ or Iron. I mean, done. Tomato. If they were bought by IONQ, then that is definitely terrible. IONQ's got all this cash from dilution that they're just buying up companies much better than themselves to make themselves a real company. Oh, no. Yes. When you're trying to grow a smaller account, you should really avoid the Exxon Mobils of the world, right? You should really avoid slow turtles like this one. Exxon Mobil did exactly what I wanted to, a gap down. And I trimmed some off into the strength yesterday too. Feel kind of smart for that one. But good. This one can just base here for a couple weeks. Yeah, but you shouldn't be trading slow turtles like XOM. You should definitely be trading much faster stocks. I would say like at minimum 4 ADR. Minimum. Yeah, Hood's dude, none of that matters. Try harder. Right? Thank you for the silver short. Appreciate that. Hood being a potential stage 4, however, growing fundamentals negate this. Have seen leaders make these bases in the past. Yeah, that's not the point, right? The point is price action. All you have done is build lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs, lower highs. And if you're going to start to close below the 200 simple moving average, dude, that's not bullish, right? So you can have it in your mind how they've got growing fundamentals all you want. But if you're below the 200 simple moving average, it does not matter, right? It really just does not matter your opinions on how much of a growing company they are, right? The fact is that all company, like, dude, NOW is also a great company. Go look into ServiceNow. Go look at their fundamentals. They're fucking awesome. ServiceNow is an amazing company. But look at this. And the entire while, this can happen to Robinhood, and you're going to be sitting there with that. Oh, but they've got growing fundamentals. Who gives a shit? You know what I'm saying? If you're below the 200 simple moving average, who cares? Is my point, right? So you don't want to do that to yourself, where it's good to know the fundamentals. It's good to know the story. It's good to know the theme. But if it's in a bad group and the market isn't favorable to this particular theme, forget about it. Forget about it. Instead, wait for a clean technical setup when it's above all key moving averages and has a nice little base, and then remind yourself of the good fundamentals, the theme, the story, everything that you think is good about this young growing company. But ServiceNow is a great company. Look at what they're doing to this thing. Smoking them, right? So it doesn't matter, right? Your opinions about how much of a great growing company it is makes no difference. Same thing with Palantir, but just on the flip side. A million people will tell you how overvalued this thing is as this thing is booming, myself included, right? But it's in an uptrend. And then all of a sudden in here, I'm a buyer of Palantir, right? It's gone through a correction. It was the first to get back above all key moving averages while the market was going down. It's the first to give me a low cheat setup. So I get long. This thing, ends up making a pretty decent move. But then ultimately, stage 3 top rolls over. But all the while, they're trading at 50 times sales, 70 times sales, 80 times sales, 100 times sales. So it just doesn't matter when it's in an uptrend. Same way that it doesn't matter when it's in a downtrend, right? If it's in a downtrend, you leave it alone. Reddit, here's another POS, dude. This thing absolutely sucks. This price action on this thing just is absolutely god awful. Now, it's still above the 200. All that's good, but it just is too sloppy, right? You want to move up and then you want tight, right? That's what you want. You want to move up and then you want tight. That's how that works. You used to work for ServiceNow. It is a great company. Hey, it is a great company. Do I like CAG for a bounce? I'm not. ConAgra Foods, dude, this thing probably moves like 1% per day. And you would ask me if I like this thing for a bounce. I appreciate my time more. This thing moves 2.5% per day. It's been in like a perpetual downtrend for a long time. Why would I even do that to myself? I'm not entirely sure what the hell just happened to AMD there. Is there news? I don't see the news. Anybody? I don't see any news on AMD there. Yeah, try harder. I just don't want you to do that to yourself, dude. It's good to know the story, but it's not good to know the story and burn that into your brain when price isn't agreeing with it. Like, I remember when my biggest trade was NVIDIA, right? And this thing had such a beautiful base down here. And I remember telling myself, like, this company's going to have $100 billion in free cash flow. They've done nothing wrong for the last 5 months after a huge move up. And I bought this here. I bought this here. And this ended up being the biggest trade of my career, with my exit being here, right? My final exit being on this bearish engulfing. So it's like, it's good to know the story when the technicals have built you a base. You've gone up and then you've gone sideways. AMD news. Jim Cramer just tweeted. AMD just keeps winning. That is not. That's it. Holy shit! That is just too good. Oh my goodness. Oh, I gotta tweet this. Give me a second. Oh, what the hell? Sorry if I lost you there. My apologies. Can you guys hear me? Just checking. Can you guys hear me? All right. Sorry. I don't know why. It felt like my computer froze up there for a second. In the midst of posting that AMD thing, audio lagging. I don't know what the hell's going on. Let's tighten up here a little bit for earnings, and then this one could be good. Yeah, I think the problem is I have two instances of StreamYard open. Unfortunately, I don't know what the hell's going on. But sorry, only a couple more minutes left. Anyway, then I got to go and finish packing up so I can get my butt on a plane. It's travel day, so you guys know how travel days tend to go. Is ALAB, dude? There's just something about this ALAB. I'll have to look. I'm not sure. I've got two curve monitors. I've got two 34 curves. I got three 32 curves and then a 27. So my 32s, I have them vertical, and then I got two 34s. So I'll have to look. I hope so, dude. I hope silver's just gonna completely implode. What are the odds that gold can just completely blow up? Down 10% on the day. Yeah, I apologize about the audio video. I feel like I have two instances of StreamYard open, but I'd have to reset my computer. Thanks, dude. All right, guys. I know I kind of messed up the stream by talking a little Jim Cramer shit this morning. I accidentally opened up two instances of StreamYard. I, for some reason, can't exit the other. Much love. I only like 10 minutes on stream anyway. I will see you guys bright and early on Monday. Hopefully, you guys trade them well. For any of you guys, if you're going to the Trader Lion meetup, I will see you guys there this weekend. So hopefully, we will see you guys, few of you guys in New York. Have a good rest of your weekend, guys. Yep. Take care.